We expect on technology, there's still people who use it really well. Yeah. Right? Then oh, okay. We got it. Go ahead. Okay, John, right? I get a little drop of water here. Help yourself. They're trying to run it with the microphone to get that thing to sound better. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, there's a light on the chair.
Fair.
Oh, no.
How is everyone? Yeah. Randy just said that I didn't think it would be good for on this.
You're great. So what's the story then? Hey. Oh.
Just,
Yeah, and make it, I don't know, pretty easier to see his mom, and so, we we're working on it. Sing out. Would you have to on these, that's what best friends do best.
there you go. Yeah, that's so nice.
Chat, make fun of the episode.
Yeah. I do Hawaiian, you met Rupa and Illinois. You know, then from that, being an American is really for me. That's for me. And you just do it, everyone did a performance on that thing. Yeah, and I was late. And just, but it was fun.
Why?
And,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
we got.
My dad. No need. And so I good friend. Rachel Lincoln was there. Yeah. Together, and my baby.
Police story. So this is being recorded tonight, so everybody be on your good behavior and come on in and grab a chair real quick. So the way we do this, we've got exciting stories, some stories that have been around for ages and you might find interesting. We've got personal stories, funny stories, sad stories, long stories. We try not to have too many long stories, and some short stories. So we're going to do the storytelling night. We're going to have an opening teller who will be Matthew Tendra, who has also been telling at the Portland Grand Slam last week, I believe it was. And then we'll have a featured teller, Holly Robinson from down in Hillsboro, Oregon, who many of you know and has been a featured teller often at our Fanning the Embers. Usually was our opening teller, except this year. So we welcome her back. And then we're going to take a break for some commercial announcements and begging for money. And then after that, we're going to have story swaps. We've got about 3 people signed up. So if any of you who are out there in the virtual world would like to tell a story tonight, please put it in the chat room. We'd ask that you don't use the chat room when stories are going on. We'd also like you to please turn on your cameras so that we can see your faces and see your reactions to the stories. So we'd appreciate if you do that also. That's about it. Everybody got their phone silenced, and I think we're ready to go. So Matthew, would you like to open the stories up for us, please?
All right. Come closer to the mic, please.
Is this, where am I?
That's good.
Good,
That's
good.
good.
All right. Good evening. So like was just said, I was in a Moth Grand Slam last week down in Portland, and it was very cool. And so what I thought I would do, since several of you wished me luck and lamented not being able to make it, I thought I would tell the story I told last week to open us up tonight.
Okay.
And because I also had a good time telling it. So just for some context, the theme of the night was mea culpa, which means my fault. And they were looking for, it was actually a very tough theme for me because so few things have ever been my fault. But they were looking for stories of self-inflicted blunders, situations gone awry, or schemes that didn't work out. So this is what I told for that. That afternoon in 2008, I found myself staring at my laptop screen, reading an email informing me that I had just been permanently banned from a book website called Shelfari, which was a competitor to Goodreads at the time. And I had to admit, it was probably the right move. I was an undergrad in 2008, and in my British Lit class, one book we had to read was Pride and Prejudice. I hate that book. I think if Jane Austen was a good writer, she'd be a Bronte sister. And to make matters worse, you might recall that 2008 was the era when our society was obsessed with all sorts of Pride and Prejudice adaptations. There was a film where the guy from Succession woos Keira Knightley. There was a book where Elizabeth Bennet slays zombies for some reason. It was Pride and Prejudice everywhere. You can imagine my suffering. Before I continue, a little about me. I am a rule follower. If there's a rule in place, I'm going to follow it, because my number one goal in life is to never be a burden on anyone else. All my report cards said I was a pleasure to have in class. I didn't even taste alcohol until I turned 21, and when I'm out on public lands, you better believe I'm leaving no trace. And so it was extremely out of character when I logged on to Shelfari and created a new post on the Pride and Prejudice discussion page without first reviewing the community guidelines. But my hatred compelled me. I said, I can't stand any of these snobby characters, especially Elizabeth Bennet. She is rude to her family, she refuses to support her closest friends, and she even admits that she only liked Mr. Darcy after she saw his big house, which makes her a class traitor on top of everything else. No. None of the characters in this book deserve happiness, especially her. My post generated quite a few responses, most of them aggressive. But there was one I found to be particularly insulting, posted by a user called Mr. Litman. And he said, please ask your parents' permission before posting anything that stupid on this page again. Maybe when you develop critical thinking skills, you could rejoin the discussion. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to take that sitting down. So before I responded, I stood up. I could feel the blood rush to my head. I could feel my heart rate increasing, and I could tell that I was becoming angry online. If you're unfamiliar, common symptoms of angry online include typing in all caps, refreshing a page every 30 seconds or so, and of course, staying up to the wee hours of the morning to argue about a topic that does not matter. If any of that sounds familiar, it's possible that you too have suffered from angry online. There I was in my power pose, and I accused Mr. Litman of being old and too comfortable in his echo chamber, and thank goodness I was here to provide a new, correct perspective on this 200-year-old disgrace of a book. Well, friends, I'm afraid this was merely the first skirmish in what would escalate into an all-out war with Mr. Litman. Territory was gained and conceded throughout the evening. Our battles even raged to the other pages. I saw that he'd posted on the Wuthering Heights page that Emily Bronte was the weakest of the Bronte sisters. So I responded to that, saying, why am I not surprised you're also wrong about this, you waste of skin? He, in turn, found my positive review of The Great Gatsby, and he responded to that, saying, of course you would like a book with a simplistic narrative where nothing happens. I'm sure that's a fine mirror for your own life. Oh yeah, we were exchanging shots, and our war was being waged throughout the site. I'm not going to go into detail on every post, but I think you all deserve to know that mockingbirds were killed. 1984 became an even worse year, and all was not quiet on the Western Front. The Shakespeare pages. Dear God. And yet, despite the horrors of war, up to that point, we had managed to avoid vulgarities. But back on the Pride and Prejudice page, that was about to change. I finally got Mr. Litman to crack. He typed in all caps, why don't you just shut up? And then he invited me to perform a very intimate act in a rather crude way. But I was still standing. And I said, at least someone might walk away from that experience satisfied. A feeling denied to anyone who has to read Pride and Prejudice. It was my sickest bird. After that, I closed my laptop and finally went to bed, comfortable with the knowledge that I had won. I figured I'd let him know the next day that I was willing to negotiate the terms of his surrender. The next day, I received the email from Shelfari. It seems multiple users had reported me, and after review, it was determined that I'd violated a number of the site's bylaws, and as such, my account had been permanently banned. All my data, hundreds of books, all my posts, all my reviews, gone forever. And that sucked. I was devastated. But also, I've had things get deleted before. What left me feeling truly distraught, and what stayed with me all these years, lost to the world, was the only documented evidence of me breaking the rules.
Thank you, Matthew. That's very good. Now, need to go read that book. No, it's on PBS. It's on PBS all the time, right? So, it's very good. Well, you haven't been banned from Twitter yet, have you?
Never tweet.
Okay, there you go. So that's great. So our next teller, of course, is Holly Robinson, who's come up to share some stories with us tonight about forbidden kisses. I'm waiting to see what that story's about. So come on, Holly.
A little nervous about this whole on the big screen thing.
Closer to the microphone. There you go.
We'll see how long I stay here.
That's okay.
All right, so tonight, before I get into my forbidden kisses, I thought that I would share something else with you, and hopefully you will think it's fun. I brought with me my prop. Someone mentioned it already, but this is my story quilt that I made years and years ago. And I usually take it with me when I go to preschools and elementary schools, and I call it my magic story quilt. And so tonight, I'm going to honor you all with a story from the magic story quilt to start off my set. And the way it works is I let 3 people touch 3 objects, and we make a story. So I'm going to leave the camera. Who wants to touch the quilt, the magic quilt? She has something already in there. All right, I need one more. Elephants are my most favorite thing in the world. All right, so we have Chiefs. Are we going with like the football or the Chiefs? Okay. And polka dots and a yellow elephant. Come join us. All right, to get ready. And was it Trevor? Yes. Trevor didn't know that elephants are my very most favorite thing in the whole world. So this is like the best ever. I love elephant stories. Once upon a time, there was an elephant. Not just any elephant, a polka-dotted elephant. And as you can imagine, this polka-dotted elephant could go nowhere without being noticed. There was no not acknowledging the elephant in the room. He was always there. When he walked down the street, when he got on the sailboats and went sailing out into the sound, can you imagine that? There's a really good story about an elephant on a boat. I'll have to tell that one sometime. And when he went to the zoo, you know, elephants live at the zoo, but not polka dotted elephants. And so as our polka dot elephant named Dot would go walking through the zoo, all eyes were on him, and they finally had to ask him to leave because he was taking away the limelight from all the other animals, you know? And so, as you can imagine, that made Dot pretty down on himself. Being kicked out of any place, as Matthew would tell us, it just really gets you right here. And so Dot was kind of wandering through town, head hung low. You know, elephants always look really good when their trumpets, when their trunks are high. But he was hanging and sad, and you know, it almost looked like his polka dots were drooping. And that's when Dot was hit in the head. It was just like torpedo right into his head, the football from the park. The kids had been playing and it had just made its way smack right into Dot's head, jostled him a little bit. He turned around to see where it had come from and stepped right on the football. He hadn't even noticed. Do I need to do something different?
Ignore me.
It's really hard. It's almost like you have polka dot spread. He flattened the football to smithereens. I mean, he didn't mean to, but elephants are really big and they just can't always see what they're doing. And so, as you can imagine, now Dot not only the zoo, but now he had a whole park full of kids that were not very happy with him. You smashed our football! How could you? They didn't care that he was a polka-dotted elephant that was like the coolest thing in the world, and he didn't know quite what to do. So big and polka-dotty and uncomfortable in his own skin. And he went over to the park and he was walking around watching the kids, and he thought, I gotta make this right. Called out, he said, hey kids, I'm really sorry about the football, but maybe you'd like to play Capture the Elephant. And they all thought this sounded like a pretty good idea. And he said, all right, let's start, and I bet you won't be able to catch me. And Dot took off. And I don't know if you have seen, but elephants, they can run pretty fast. And he was running around the park and he was weaving in and out of the trees. He went under the swings. He kind of just pushed him out of the way and went right through them. And it was like a parade, because first it was the football players following Dot and weaving right along with him, and then it was everybody else at the park was weaving and following Dot and cheering and yelling, we're gonna get you! But it wasn't like a, we're gonna get you. It was like, yeah, this is awesome! We're gonna get you! And by the time Dot kind of started losing and running out of juice, he had quite a parade behind him. And when he slowed down slow enough, everybody just kind of bombarded and smashed into him and all around him. Can you imagine smashing into an elephant bomb? But they just smashed all around him, and it was like a big community group elephant hug. We got you! And he was like, and he said, I knew you could. And all of those feelings of feeling so left out and dejected were gone, because he was surrounded by a group of people that had decided that they liked him a whole lot. Who knew?
I think you picked a ringer there. You picked an elephant. I was going to mention that elephants are some of Holly's favorite stories, and I didn't, so
Just
were you clued in? Okay.
No, I just noticed on the.
Oh, yeah, this is my elephant water bottle. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for playing along with me. That is a joy of mine, and now maybe you guys can figure out a way to, I don't know, does anyone else like telling like improv stories? I just think it's so fun, and I don't know how everyone else does it, but I love having the storytelling role. All right, on to my other piece. Here we go. Kussen verboten, keiner, der mich je gesehen hätte, das geglaubt. Kussen ist bei mir nicht erlaubt. Oh, and we even got our German down here, right? Nice. That is a little German ditty by a German rock group called Die Prinzen. And it simply says, forbidden kisses, forbidden kisses. Anybody that knows me or anybody that's seen me knows that kisses are not allowed with me. And I fell in love with this song when I was a German exchange student, when I was 18 years old, and I heard it again recently, and just like all those memories came rolling back, and then these stories from my life. And so that's what I want to share with you tonight, is a few of these stories. But first, I want you to sing with me. Just repeat after me. We'll just do the easy part. And at the end of my this little short little piece that I just sang, we're all gonna do a big kiss. Okay, you ready? Kussen verboten. Kussen verboten. Keiner, der mich je gesehen hätte, das geglaubt. Bei mir nicht erlaubt. Haha, see, you guys are awesome. So in 1993, it was the summer before I turned 16 years old, and I hadn't been kissed. It was okay with me because I had set a goal for myself that I wasn't going to date until I was 16, and for me, kissing came after dating, and so I was okay with that. But everything changed that summer. That was the summer that I was cast in a summer stock production. I'm from Farmington, New Mexico, and they had a show that they did every summer called Anasazi the Ancient Ones. I was a token white settler, as you can see, but my character, Annie Tate, had a stage kiss. Yeah, so now I was going to do something in front of hundreds of people that I had never done in real life before. And you may say, well, Holly, that's acting. We like to have experience, right? Well, I went to our first rehearsal at the Farmington Civic Center, and I entered this large room. The cast, it was a big cast, and so I entered this room with actors, and I started scanning the room, trying to figure out who True Gibbons was. That's the character that I, Annie Tate, was supposed to kiss. And I looked around. Oh, well, I mean, he's kind of cute. Maybe he's the one. That would be okay. And I really hope that it's not him. Look at all that acne. But I didn't have to wait super long because our director, Marilyn, she started sending everyone to different parts of the room with our makeshift stage, and she called, Drew Gibbons, Annie Tate, meet me right here. And I made my way, and I watched who else was making their way, and there he was. Tall, blonde, blue eyes, very handsome. Do worse for a first kiss. And Marilyn then explained to us that this was going to be a scene, and True was going to enter from one side of the stage and make his way to this corner, greeting people as he came, and I was going to make my way from the other side of the stage, and we'd meet right here. She said, you stand about 3 feet apart, bend at the hips, your lips don't even have to touch because the audience will get the drift. Children are going to be running around you singing, True Kiss Danny, True Kiss Danny, and then you part and go your separate ways. And I thought, what kind of kiss is that? Exactly not a kiss, but we practiced this no kiss kiss all rehearsals and into opening night. Our production took place at this outdoor amphitheater in outside of Farmington. We weren't too far away from Mesa Verde, so tour buses would come, they would travel to Mesa Verde, and then they would come to Farmington and see our show. So we had people from all over the world. And the stage was this had a beautiful sandstone backdrop with juniper trees and pinon bushes framing the stage, and the sun set behind the audience every night, casting its glow on the stage. So very picturesque. And we just kept doing our thing until one night. It started out like any other night. I have to tell you, I was only in one scene and the finale of this show, and we performed it 4 nights a week all summer long. So of course I love being on stage, as you can tell, but I had lots of downtime, and so I got to know True Gibbons really well. My childhood crush just grew and grew. So I loved that I got to, dance with him on stage and then chat with him off stage. But on this particular night, I put on my cakes of stage makeup and my green and white striped dress and my matching bonnet, opening circle, and did our warm-ups as a cast. And at the end, we all lifted our arms and said, "In the mouth of the wolf!" That was our cast call. Waited for our turn, for our scene to come up. And backstage, I don't know if you can relate to this, but it's so hard to be quiet, and we were never quiet enough for the stage manager. She was always, shh, shh. And when we heard our music, we went rushing up this long hill that took us to the stage, and we rushed up the hill, and we started making our entrances. True entered on his side, I entered on mine. We met there in the middle, 3 feet apart, bend at the waist. But our lips touched. That had never happened before. And it was like time stopped, because like I said, first time, and I was thinking about, at first I thought how magical it felt, and then I was thinking 100 people watching. And the children running around singing, True Kiss Danny, True Kiss Danny. But I swear that my feet lifted up off the ground. I was floating on air. We had this big square dance number after that, and my petticoats were flying and boots were kicking, but I never touched the ground. Even as we exited the stage with the exit music, that was intermission. And then True came up behind me and he whispered in my ear, Holly, about what happened on stage. I am so sorry. Pretty sure that's not the way that a first magical kiss was supposed to go. Now I know that he was just trying to be a gentleman. That's not how we had practiced it, and I just wish that he would have just let it be a first kiss. And it happened a couple of times throughout the production, but it had lost its moment. And I will say that after the production was over, that True and I did have some unpracticed kisses, not in front of an audience, But after high school, we went our separate ways, and I went to Germany, like I mentioned, and was an exchange student. I heard about Die Prinzen, and then I came home, and so this was about 1997, I guess, when I had come home from Germany, and here I was. I had just been away for a year, and I was back in Farmington, New Mexico, and all of my friends, they'd all gone. They'd either gone off to college or moved away or gotten married. It was so weird when your friends start getting married. And so I had to find, my new place and I found myself at a young single adult church activity. And I was in this room, a gymnasium full of, half of them were prospective date material, and I guess the other half were the word is failing me. The competition. Just kidding. We're all just there to have a good time. But again, I was scanning the room not to find a kisser this time, but just, guys that looked kind of interesting. And this was long before the days of swiping right and swiping left. I just had to do that on my own. So I thought, oh, he looks kind of cute. He's got a nice haircut. And if he walks towards me, I'm just gonna walk the other way. And then I saw someone, I thought, oh, look, he looks so interesting. He's got a nice smile. And he must have had the same idea, because before too long, we were introducing ourselves to each other. And come to find out, David and I had actually gone to high school together, but he had been a football jock running around with the popular crowd, and I had been a choir nerd running around with the complete opposite crowd. And now that those barriers from high school were gone, here we were, getting to know each other. It didn't seem like we had a lot in common that, well, we liked hanging out. And so a first date to see George of the Jungle turned into a second date, a game night with friends, and then a third afternoon walk along on a Sunday afternoon where we held hands for the first time. And before too long, I realized that this boy who I hadn't known a week before, he had become one of my favorite parts of every day. In this week, he had brought me flowers and picked me up in classes, and he liked my parents. I mean, they're pretty likable, but at the end of this week of spending lots of time together, sitting outside of my house in his truck. And it was that part of the night, or that time of the night, when the date was over, but you didn't really want to say goodnight yet. And so you were just trying to telling me about some of his hopes and dreams. I talked about some of mine, and then there was a change in the energy, the atmosphere of the cab. I could tell he was looking at my lips, thinking about a kiss. And once I realized that, I couldn't think of anything else. And then I was trying to decipher in my head, well, did I want a kiss? And if I did, or if I didn't, how do I let him know that? And all these things just going through my head, and I could tell that the space between us was getting smaller and smaller. And I don't know if I had given any signal at all, but before I knew it, David was kissing me. And he shared a lot more than saliva. And in that moment, I was thinking about, okay, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to play it cool, like the cool girlfriend that wants whatever he wants? Or am I going to let him know that this makes me really uncomfortable, and you're moving way too fast after just knowing you for a week. And if I do choose the latter, what is his choice going to be? You going to leave me for somebody who does want what he wants, or we think it's okay? Who knew? All those thoughts going through my head in a split second, and then he unlatched, and I said, that made me kind of uncomfortable. That's moving a little fast for just knowing you a week. And his facial expression gave his feelings away. He said, "Oh, Holly, I am so sorry. I would never want to do anything to make you feel uncomfortable. We can totally take things at your pace." I thought that was a pretty good move, fella. And I was like, wow, that was a good move for me. And David was true to his word. We did date for about a year, and he kind of let me call the shots in that area of our relationship. And before we went our separate ways, I felt like that along with somebody who's maybe, has a different background than you. And like I said, even though we went our separate ways, I will never forget the lesson that I learned that night in that cab, that I am strong enough to stand up for myself, and that any guy who is keeping around will be okay with that. So I really appreciated that. After David and I went our separate ways, I made a life decision that made kissing, let alone boys, totally off limits. I became a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And missionaries have a lot of rules, and I am a rule keeper too, Matthew. And I went back to Germany wearing a black name tag to tell all the people there about how God loves them. But like I said, I'm a rule follower, and missionaries have lots of rules. There's rules about when to wake up in the morning, when to go to bed at night. You have a companion, a buddy that you're supposed to stay with all the time, unless you're going to the bathroom. And the opposite sex is completely off limits. You're supposed to take arm's length away. And so in my efforts to follow all these rules, I tell you, I got so uncomfortable when people would say, let's take a picture, and everyone would scrunch in to get in the frame of the picture, and I would be so conscious of how close those people of the Y chromosome were to my body. But I loved being a missionary. And one day I was on a bus with my companion, Sister Osmond, and we were headed to an appointment. We were in a town called Saarbrücken. It's right on the French border. And we stopped at a bus stop. I could look out the bus windows and see the cobblestone streets and the town square. And people started getting on the bus, and the happy, friendly person that I try to be, I would just, look up and smile at people as they walked past me, see if they would smile back. Sometimes there would be a little bit of eye contact. And this older gentleman with a fedora, he got on the bus, and I gave him a smile, and we made eye contact, but then he latched eye contact, and he didn't let go. And the neutral expression on his face changed to one of excitement and acknowledgement. And he beelined it towards me, and he said, "Anna, schön dich zu sehen. Anna, it's so nice to see you." And without, before I knew what was going on, he had taken my face in his hands and given me a big, wet grandpa kiss right on the lips. And then as he backed away, that excited expression on his face changed to one of embarrassment and horror as he said, "Entschuldigen Sie mich bitte, du bist nicht Anna." Please excuse me, you are not Anna. He turned around and walked off the bus, I don't know if he ever got where he was going. But all I know is the doors of the bus closed and it started moving, but I felt like I was stuck back at the bus stop wondering, what just happened? I was in shock. And then I was jostled by my companion, Sister Osmond. She was shaking because she was giggling so much. And her giggling got me giggling, and we were just like, oh my goodness, who was he? And who did he think you were? And I actually think of this moment more often than I should think that I should, because every time I get that feeling of anticipation and excitement that I see someone I know and I want to say hi, I think, what if it's like Anna? And then I realize I say, go and greet them, because you're not going to greet them with a kiss. After I came home from my mission, not very long thereafter, I married my forever kissing partner, John. Yes, and we've obviously gotten lots of practice. We now have 4 kids. And when our first 2 kids were young and we had toddlers in the house, maybe like around 2005 or so, and John and I would kiss, it would be like we were magnets, and our little girls would cling to our legs like they were sucking the love out of our legs, and they would wait patiently. No. They would wait impatiently. Toddlers don't do patient, but they would wait for their turn to get a kiss. But they grow up, and I now have a house full of teenagers, and the scene is very, very different. If we're cleaning up after dinner and John gets a glint in his eye and he pulls me away from the sink and starts waltzing me around the kitchen singing, I could have danced all night. Well, Mom and Dad stop cleaning. That gives everyone a free ticket to stop, and there's a dance party in the kitchen until John ends the dance, dropping me into a dip with a big kiss. And that's when they let loose. Gross! Ew! Stop! No! Kissing is not allowed. Get a room, they say. In my own house. And do we apologize? No, because I think there is no greater gift that a parent can give a child than the security of knowing that their parents love each other. Kussen verboten. Kussen verboten. Keiner, der mich je gesehen hätte, das geglaubt. Kussen ist bei mir nicht erlaubt. Thank you guys. Thanks for singing.
Oh. I thought there was gonna be more to that story. No, anyway.
I can continue if you want.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay.
Yes.
So thank you very much. And I think we have a little bit of time before we take our next break. So Toby, would you? I'll open the doors. Yeah, we'll open the doors while Toby's coming up to tell a quick story, okay? And then we'll take a regular break.
Ollie, kissing stories. Oh my God.
No, I won't tell my kissing stories.
Oh, no, you should.
No.
You have to.
Am I okay where I am, Brett?
Why don't you move to your left? The other left. A little more. There it is, that's good.
Okay, am I okay now?
Yeah.
All right. My grandmother's house was like a museum full of Japanese antiques. And every time I would go visit her, there was one particular antique statue that just captivated me. It was about this tall, about the size of a 8-year-old child, all green, a beak, googly eyes, webbed hands and feet, a dish on top of its head like an invert, and a turtle shell on the back. It looked like a ninja turtle. And she saw me looking at the statue and she goes, "Ah, Tobi-chan, this is a kappa. A kappa is a mythical creature, very naughty." "Oh, really?" "Yes. Would you like to hear a story?" "Oh, yes, please tell me." "Okay. Mukashi, long ago in Japan, there was a village right by this beautiful flowing river, and children loved to swim in this river. Well, one particular summer, of course, the children were swimming, but unfortunate things would occur. Some of the children did not return home. The parents were very worried because they assumed that their child had drowned. The bodies were never found. So everyone was wondering, what is the problem here? Where are the children? How come there are no bodies? It was one late afternoon. A farmer was walking on the trail trying to find his cow that had wandered off. And as he is walking, there it is, that cow, that silly cow, come back here. Eh? It's so still. And he went and started to pet the cow. Huh? And then, what? Nandake? This cow is hollow. This cow is empty. And he was in a panic and he ran to the village square yelling, "The cow is dead. The cow is empty." All the villagers come and gather. "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, my cow is empty. It just kind of toppled over as if there was nothing in it." It was at that point when this old man, Oji-san, "I know who did that, or what creature did that. It was the kappa." "Eh? Kappa?" "Yes, the kappa. The kappa loves to suck all the innards out of living things. It's the kappa." "Oji-san," gathered some young men. "Oji-san, what are we supposed to do?" "Well, I will tell you, the kappa is very, very strong. And on top of the kappa's head is this inverted dish. And as long as there is water in that dish, that kappa is very strong. So you will have to figure it out." So of course, the young men got together and they had a plan. Wow. "Tomorrow morning we will meet at the river. And then we will get the kappa. Because kappas love to swim." So that's what they did. They went to the river and they all dove in. And they were very strong swimmers. And they're swimming, looking for this creature. And way down below is this kappa looking up at all these dangling legs. He swam and he grabbed the leg, brought it down, and right in front of his face was this young man, panicked, and this kappa in his googly eyes was laughing. Oh, that young man, he just kicked for his life and just got loose, went up to the top of the river, popped out, and called to his servant, "Everybody out of the river." And he told him what had happened. "We must think of another plan." And off they went home. 3 days later, when the young man was walking home on the path, the sun was just about to set, and he noticed, hey, what are all these wet marks going across the trail from the river into the meadow? I think I'll go check. Which he did. He went and he said, "Hey, what's that in front of me?" And there he saw this green-like creature with a turtle shell in the back, hunched down, eating cucumbers. Kappa love cucumbers, and so do you if you've gone to a sushi shop and order kappamaki. Eating away. And so the young man thought, aha, I have an idea. So he quietly went back, got his buddies together, and told them what he saw. The next evening, he and his buddies go to the meadow, and they just sit there and they wait patiently. Sure enough, that kappa gets out of the river, crosses a trail, goes to the cucumber patch, and the men get up, and they start running after this kappa. The kappa then suddenly, he gets up, and he's ready. He loves to wrestle. So the men come after him, and he tosses him here and there and underneath, and oh, he's having a wonderful time. But each time he does that, little bits of water drain out of that little dish until suddenly it's empty, and blah, he collapses onto the ground. He is absolutely helpless. So the men get a hold of that kappa. Quick, get him, tie him to this pole, which they did. Arms, legs, and they each get the end, and they carry him to the mayor's house. And who's gonna be? You got the kappa? Oh, Rodu, that's name. Very good. Come on. Let's take the kappa to the kitchen. So the kappa then is hoisted up and tied onto a pole and just dangling there. Mariko, you just look after the kappa, yeah? While we go into the sitting room. Mariko was his daughter, and she was stirring away at the socket. Make sure it was nice and warm. Mariko-chan, could you please bring us some more sake? Hi, Oto-san. And as she is stirring, the kappa looks down at Mariko. Mariko-chan desho ne? Your name is Mariko. Well, Mariko, I am absolutely harmless. You know, I do these things as a joke. I only do these things to scare children. I'm harmless. Let me go. Tell your father it was just pranks. Mariko, she's stirring away. Prank? You call drowning my little brother a prank? Why, how dare you? And she became so angry, she took that ladle. Well, I am going to. And as she did that, Suzume no Namida, teardrop of a sparrow, landed right into the dish head of that kappa. Wah! He got his strength back. One arm. Now Mariko is yelling, Oto-san, come quick. Oh my gosh, the other arm, it's so, he yanked so hard that he left his arm dangling above, but whoosh, the kappa left. And then my grandmother says to me, Tobi-san, you must be very, very careful where you go. I know you like to go fishing, and I know there's the river, the Deschutes that is near your house. Ne? I said, yes, grandmother. I hear that there's a one-armed kappa that lives in that river.
Thank you, Toby. Well, I never thought I'd hear a story about a cucumber-eating monster called kappa. There he goes. So like we said, these evenings are always interesting. I mean, what a gamut of stories, right? But we're going to continue on, but we're going to take about a 5-minute break. There's a restroom right around the corner. Nice views out along the boardwalk. And take 5 minutes, stretch yourself, get cooled off. And for those of you watching on Zoom, if any of you would like to tell a story, please let us know. Unmute yourself or on chat while we're on our break, and we'll get you in there. We've got a couple storytellers arranged for the story swap, but we still have room for a couple more. And we enjoy hearing from everybody. Thank you.